Okay, hi! The furry fandom caters to a lot of different people. When I stop to think about it, it's pretty crazy to me that people from all walks of life are part of the fandom. Because it truly is just about appreciating anthropomorphic animals. It's so simple, but that is the core concept that brings furries together. So I think it's really cool that these kinds of characters can bring so much comfort and joy to the point that some people make their own. Having a fursona, or just an anthro character, is arguably the biggest defining feature of a furry. And because of this, it's not hard to see why creativity, and specifically artwork, is so big in the community. I can't remember the last time I came across a furry who didn't have a fursona, or character of sorts, plus art of that character. That's just the easiest way to show off a character. Of course, digital art comfortably dominates the visual art of the fandom. Although it's hard to point out a statistic, I think it's probably fair to say that most furries have more digital art of their characters than traditional or any other kind of art. And I'm part of that crowd. I hate to admit it, but I'm kinda bad at keeping up with my own art. I literally just looked through all the recent art I got that I didn't put in a flash drive or uploaded to Toy House, and I'm pretty sure that it goes back to like 2023. I know I have a lot of pieces missing because I can picture them in my mind, but I did want to give some sort of statistic. So, of the art that I can find, which includes pieces with different versions, I'm gonna say that I have 103 art pieces. And I have 2 more on the way, so I'll bump that number up to 105. So out of those 105, 95 are digital pieces. That's about 90% of all my art, and I'm pretty sure the other pieces I'm missing are also digital, which means that percentage is even higher. I know I went on a whole tangent, but my point is, digital art is insanely common. And there's nothing wrong with that. I honestly want to talk about digital art and art in general as it relates to the fandom at some point, but today, I want to focus on other ways of showing off your fursona. A lot of furries are no strangers to working with fabrics. I'm willing to bet after artists, fursuit makers are the most common creators in the fandom when it comes to visual arts and crafts. Of course, fursuit making has more to do with sewing, so it makes sense that a lot of people focus on those kinds of skills. But as a smaller craft, there is cross-stitching. You also work with fabric, but what you make is more like traditional art. In a way, it's kinda like pixel art in real life if you think about it. I got this really cute design in late 2025. It's a gift I gave to my friend Patch, who I went to see overseas. I wanted to get something furry that I could give him in person, so I thought something like this could be neat. And I am so glad I went for it because it just turned out so good. I seriously can't express how happy I am with it. It's just adorable, and I love how his character looks in this style. There's definitely something to be said about how precise you have to be to make sure the design looks just right. In this case, you have several colors at play with a few markings and patterns. Plus, you have to make sure that the character looks fluffy and soft. Aside from the artistic aspect, I think part of what makes this so unique is that you can actually feel how soft the fabric is. And because of how it's framed, this is basically as if you printed out digital art or took traditional art and framed it. It's just a super cute craft that's perfect for decorating your furry spaces. I definitely think cross-stitching is something anyone can pick up, and I bet pixel artists can probably do particularly good with it. In fact, Rokio, who I got the cross-stitch from, starts by making a digital drawing of the design they want to do before actually working with thread and needle. A big part of this is figuring out what fabric colors are needed. Rokio told me before it's a simple process, but can definitely take a while to get a project done depending on how complex it is. For example, a lot of the designs Rokio does are actually headshots, so compared to something like a full-body chibi that I got for Patch, a headshot is not going to take nearly as long because there's just not as much that you have to stitch. So from what I understand, in theory you could make some insanely complex cross-stitching designs. I think it just depends on how big the fabric is that you're working with, because that's technically your canvas for this. I would for sure recommend the cross-stitch pattern of your fursona or character if you want something unique, and especially something physical. Like I said, I'm sure anyone can try cross-stitching on their own, but if you want to leave it to someone who's experienced, I highly recommend Rokio. Definitely check them out if you want to see more great furry cross-stitching fun. Speaking of physical crafts, this next one steps away from the traditional visual arts even more than cross-stitching. I mentioned that cross-stitching is kinda like pixel art in real life, because it's right at home with any collections of traditional art that you may have. but now I want to talk about clay sculptures. Although I've seen people in the fandom do commissions for these, it's still something that you don't really come across very often, at least in my experience. The sculpture I got was also for Patch. Since I wanted to give him something physical, this was definitely perfect. I got this one from an artist named Sunny. All I did was think of a pose that would fit Patch's character, and really Sunny took it from there. And what can I say, the pictures and videos seriously don't do it justice. It just hits different seeing it in person. A lot of people say a fursuit is what brings the character to life, and on a smaller scale, I think a sculpture like this does the same thing. Huge compliments to Sunny for being spot on with the colors, as well as the smaller pieces for details like the fur and the hair. When you see the sculpture done for the first time, you just have to take in all the details. You can't not stop and take a moment to appreciate the work that goes into it. I'm sure it goes without saying, but this definitely makes for a fantastic decoration with all of your furry stuff. Oh, and the little lily pad of sorts where the character is sitting is something Sunny made completely on their own. I didn't ask for it or even thought about it, so awesome detail on their part. It's a prop that goes perfectly with the sculpture's pose. This is something else that makes sculptures like these great. You can get pretty creative with it and just add different props. At some point after the sculpture was almost done, I thought, what if I had asked for the pose to be as if Patch was painting? Because I remember seeing at the store a long time ago some tiny easels. I've mentioned before that Patch draws charcoal portraits in fursuit, so I thought of giving him a sculpture of his character doing that and pairing it with one of the tiny easels. But of course it was too late because, like I said, I thought about this when Sunny was almost done with the sculpture, but I'm not complaining about the original idea. It still turned out amazing, and I'm really happy they made it happen. I just wanted to point out that if you try to make a clay sculpture of your own, or maybe get one from Sunny, props could pair very well with the sculpture depending on what pose you choose. I could also highly recommend Sunny if you'd like to get something like this. I know I want one for myself, and I have so many ideas for it. I made it a point to try to focus on stuff that isn't just artwork, but my whole goal is to talk about unique ways to show off your fursona or character. And I can't not mention the one thing that I do own for myself. A charcoal portrait! Drawn by my friend Patch. Everything I've talked about relates in some way to Patch, so I think the alternative title for this video could be Patch the Cat Appreciation Post, and nobody would really know the difference. But anyway, in the past I already talked a little bit about how I got this portrait from Patch. In fact, some of you probably know that he drew this portrait that I have hanging right here. I can't remember exactly when he did it, but it must have been spring or early summer last year. But now I have the opportunity to show off the portrait better and talk about why I think it's so unique. First of all, just look at the size of this. I used to have some traditional pieces on the wall back there, but I had to move them because this portrait is just huge. A lot of people nowadays probably don't even have pictures of their friends and family that are this big, so just having an art piece of this size already stands out a lot. I've already mentioned in this video that Patch's portraits are drawn with charcoal. Wow, Patch's portraits, that actually sounds pretty nice. I'll be honest, until I met Patch in 2024, I had no idea charcoal was even a medium for art. It's a technique that's typically used for monochrome drawings and can have a sketchy sort of look. But as you can see, this is an anthro style that's just so full of color. I mean, just look at the expression in the pose, and the little heart as well. It's literally just me. They do say life imitates art, so honestly, I think I get it. One of the things that I especially like about charcoal is how the coloring looks. It's very soft, and it looks great with the more thick appearance of the line work that helps define everything else, like the fur, the hair, the eyes, and pretty much just every other feature. It feels like a pretty cozy portrait, which is perfect for decorating your space. I'm sure a lot of artists could give this medium a try and make really good pieces, but I can't recommend Patch enough for this. He's been drawing these portraits for more than a year now, and I promise you, he is getting better with each one. It's honestly really impressive and just fun to watch his style slowly progressing as time goes on. Definitely go check out his socials for a daily dose of charcoal furry art, and if you commission him, tell him I said hi. That's all for this video though. Like I said at the beginning, because art, and particularly digital art, is so common in the fandom, I personally really enjoy seeing other creative ways people create. I just think it's neat being able to show off your fursona in these unique ways. I already have a few other ideas for this, so maybe I'll make another video about this topic. And if you have seen other cool and uncommon ways that people show off their characters in the fandom, just let me know in the comments. I'd love to look into anything you guys have seen. Plus, like I said before, I also do want to talk about artwork in general, so if you have anything in particular about furry art you might be interested to hear about, tell me about that as well. I really hope you all enjoyed the stuff I showed today though. I already said it, but I definitely want to encourage you to check out all of the creators I mentioned today if you liked what you saw from them. You might have noticed that I put their social media handles throughout the video, but I'll also leave a link to them in the description. Thank you so much for watching though, and until next time, take care!